Hello everyone, I'm Raphael and I've been living in Switzerland for about 4 years now as a software developer. And today I want to talk to you about why it can make a lot of sense for you to also move to Switzerland if you're a software developer, techie, or maybe even a scientist. One of the most obvious reasons to move to Switzerland if you're a software developer or other techie is that you can multiply your income and also your savings rate just by pretty much doing the same job in the same role, just in a different country for typically a different company. And I have to emphasize this is the case even after you counter the fact that, of course, the cost of living, rent, etc., everything is higher in Switzerland. The savings rate, so basically whatever you're saving at the end of every month after all taxes and living expenses, can easily multiply once you move to Switzerland. So you might now say, well, Raphael, how can this actually be true? Because if I move to Switzerland, everything will be more expensive, so how can my savings rate be higher? Well, the thing is, most of the time, the cost of living is sort of close to the ratio of incomes. So let's assume that wherever you live right now, by moving to Switzerland, you will earn twice as much as net income after taxes than you make now. Then let's also assume that at the same time, the cost of living in Switzerland is maybe twice as much as what you're spending right now on rent, food, health insurance, and so on. So if that's the case, if basically both your income and your expenses scale with a factor of 2, it means that the difference, which is your savings rate, will also scale up with a factor of 2. So basically, only if your cost of living in Switzerland would scale up with a higher factor than your net income compared to where you make your money and spend your money right now, only in that case would your savings rate actually decrease. But this is in most cases not the case. Instead, your savings rate will actually increase in very many cases. I can confirm this as having moved from Germany to Switzerland myself, where kind of these proportions hold up, everything kind of doubled, both the income and the expenses. So in the end, my savings rate also doubled each month. You might think that everything is more expensive in Switzerland, and while overall that's not untrue, there are a few things that are actually sometimes less expensive. If you take imported goods, such as electronics, they can sometimes be less expensive in Switzerland than your home country, especially if your home country is a European country. And the reason for that is that the value-added tax, so basically that indirect tax that's added to whatever you buy, is much lower in Switzerland than in any other European country. So it might be that the next iPhone or the next Google phone is less expensive in Switzerland than in your home country just because the VAT is lower. Another great motivation to move to Switzerland is the quality and reliability of the infrastructure. So maybe you live in a country that already has fast internet and reliable public transportation. But unless you already live in Switzerland, chances are that by moving to Switzerland, your internet will be faster, both the mobile and landline one. The trains will be much more extensive, more reliable, and more widespread. Switzerland, for example, has an insanely great density of stops of means of public transportation, so train stations, bus stations, and so on. So you can pretty much go to every corner of Switzerland, including the mountains, with really, really reliable and comparatively affordable public transportation. And if you compare that with some other countries, for example, the neighboring country, Germany, that is also typically known for being reliable, you can really see a difference. Because in Germany, according to current statistics, only about half the trains are actually on time. So that means that half the trains are not on time in Germany. Let that sink in for a moment. The Swiss are really efficient, and that also shows in taxation. So basically, the Swiss government requires much less money to provide really high quality services, so you pay much lower percentages of tax, both as a normal employed individual and of course also if you're a freelancer or an entrepreneur. It of course depends on where you are right now, since there are some countries which are competing with Switzerland in terms of low taxes. but most of the time you're going to pay maybe half or even less the percents of taxes compared to what you're paying right now. Be aware, of course, this is not tax advisory, and it depends on many factors on your individual case. Keep in mind that it actually depends a lot on where you live in Switzerland, because Switzerland consists of 26 cantons, and the taxes in Switzerland vary a lot depending on the canton and also the municipality you live in. So if you live in, let's say, the canton of Geneva, you might actually have to pay very high taxes, whereas if you live in the canton of Zurich or the canton of Schwyz or Zug, which are close to Zurich, then your taxes might be drastically lower. And even moving from one city to a neighboring city can actually change your income tax or your profit tax for your company. I feel like my living quality greatly improved because the food is so much better in Switzerland and people pay so much more attention to having good ingredients and having good quality food every single day. And I grew up in a country that's maybe not exactly known for the best food, Germany. You know, especially in retrospect, I was so disappointed of the typical food that you get in work canteens in Germany for lunch. And it really started annoying me towards the end of my time in Germany. And then when I finally moved to Switzerland, I feel like it's a different world. All of a sudden, you have a much higher quality of food for an acceptable price. It's not like I'm paying a fortune for it now. And also, you have a lot of choice. You obviously have all the neighboring countries' cuisines, you know, from Austria, France, and Italy. But of course, you have many international cuisines from Asia, the Arabic world, and everywhere. If you care about animals, being it because you eat them or being it because you don't eat them and you just genuinely love animals, you might really love Switzerland. Switzerland has one of the strictest regulations in the world regarding to the safety and well-being of animals, being it farm animals and also all other sorts of animals. So if you look at typical animals like chicken that might produce your eggs, in case you are not a vegan, the minimum space that every chicken needs to have in Switzerland is much higher than the minimum space you have in the neighboring countries and many other countries in the world. Or another example is horses. There are many, many rules on the well-being of horses in Switzerland that unfortunately don't exist yet in the rest of the world. So I think we can really say that horses and other similar animals are treated much better in Switzerland than in many other countries around the world. This factor is very close to my heart, and it might actually be a decisive factor for you, because either it means that Switzerland is one of the best countries for you, or it might not be a reason to move to Switzerland for you. For me, Switzerland is the country of individualism and entrepreneurship. I originally came from a country, Germany, which has a quite different culture, even though it's one of the immediate neighbors of Switzerland. Germany is more entrenched with a concept called communitarianism. So in Germany, it's very often important to base your decisions and your life upon what others do, what the government says, what the neighbors say, and so on. So basically the community. Switzerland, in the sense, is more like the US and other Anglo-Saxon countries, where you do pretty much what you want. Of course, unless you harm somebody or break the law. So you can really live your own personal life, pursue your own dream, and you don't always have to base what you're doing based on the government, your neighbors, or somebody else. Individualism. Switzerland really, really lives these values. You can see this on political levels, because Switzerland consists of 26 cantons, so it's basically 26 states on this already relatively small country. And then even every town and city inside these cantons has a relatively high level of autonomy in making local rules, not just in terms of taxes, but also in terms of all other parts of the life. So if you like individualism, then Switzerland might be the perfect country for you. And it could particularly be a good alternative to all the Anglo-Saxon countries like the United States or Canada. That's it for today. I'm Raphael from 38 countries. If you like this video, click like and subscribe. And of course, I'm looking forward to your comments and questions. See you in the next video. Oh, and look at this. This is the famous Zug Lake in the Swiss crypto valley. Isn't that beautiful?